Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Last Night in Soho is the newest movie by Edgar Wright, written and directed by, I guess the screenplay was written by Christy Wilson Cairns. That's about as good as I'll get on that one. A different tone, different vibe than we're used to from Edgar Wright. Obviously known for his comedic movies like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, the whole Coronado trilogy, which I'm forgetting the third of that trilogy, End of the World maybe. I think that might be the name of it. Of course, Baby Driver, which is also, I would say, a step away from what he's used to doing tonally, in a way. Edgar Wright loves to incorporate music into his films. He loves to edit to that music, kind of embed the pacing of the film with the music itself, which Baby Driver was a big exploration of doing that, which I thought was amazing. I totally enjoyed Baby Driver. This one tonally is a lot darker. It's, you know, suspense, thriller, horror type of a movie. It has themes of following your dream, the reality of following your dream versus the romantic idea of following your dream, and how those things kind of come to a head once you start taking those steps towards pursuing your dream or your passion. It's a much different story than, you know, the romantic, the easy, the biopic version of what it is to follow your dream. But this one is about a girl who is a small town girl, modern day takes place, but she's enamored with the fashion of the 60s. She's going to fashion school in England. She's going to the big city for the first time, and weird things start to happen. I love this movie. I'm going to start there because I'm going to spoil this movie in an attempt to talk about this movie, so I may spoil aspects of this movie, but I really did enjoy it. I thought the ride that you go on is great. I thought the end, how it all wraps up at the end, is very impactful. I love the character she's like, when she goes to this big city to go to school. She gets accepted to this fashion school. And because she's a small town girl, she becomes like the outcast. She's the other. So she kind of forms a bond with another guy, this black guy that's going to the fashion school as well, who in a lot of ways is an outcast and an other himself. He doesn't live in the city either. He commutes a long way to the city, and he's a dude. He's a black dude in fashion, which I'm sure there are some stigmas attached to that as well. But they form a bond, which I've heard reviews of this movie that don't buy his attraction to her. But as somebody, like, from personal experience, for a guy like myself, if you find somebody that you're into, you're attracted to, that's also kind of an outcast, also kind of an other, it kind of makes it very easy to fall, kind of be enamored with that person, despite the fact that that person may not be the healthiest person to be around, for whatever reason. No fault of her own. It's not necessarily the best situation for him. And because of that, a lot of people, like, there's no reason why he'd be into her. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I've only heard that from women. So as a dude, especially at that age, you're going to college, you know, it's very easy for a guy to get into a girl. It doesn't take a whole lot. So anyway, she's a small town girl. She's going, so it's just assume spoilers. Assume spoilers, right? So she goes to this big city, and before she goes, she lives with her grandma. Something happened to her mom. We don't really know. Maybe we kind of know. It's been a couple weeks since I've watched this, and I didn't take notes, so forgive me if my details are slightly off. But she has, like, this thing. Her grandma mentions that, like, are you still having those visions? Are you still seeing your mom? And meanwhile, and at that very moment, she sees a reflection. or she has just seen her mom. So she has like these visions of her mom that's no longer alive, which, you know, is kind of just the tip of the iceberg as far as what happens in this movie. So she goes to this school. She's kind of the outcast. There's, you know, the dorms that they're in. It's a shitty situation. She's not like everybody's just there and partying. She's not really into that. So she finds a place out off campus, renting a room from this old lady, you know, who has rules for her house, like don't bring anybody over, you know, no partying, no drugs, all that kind, no smoking, all that kind of stuff. And she's, you know, small town girl. She's not into any of that. All she's there for is to follow her passion and make clothes. That's her thing. The beginning of this movie is her dancing around in a dress, which I believe is a reference to a movie that I don't know about, but a movie from the 60s, part of the fashion from the 60s. And it's just her jam. She loves the music from that era. She loves the fashion from that era. That's just the thing that's like, that's part of her voice. And because of that, that sets her apart from the other people who, like the other people that are in the school, the other women, the girls that are in the school are much more concerned about like big brand names, trying to impress people by what you're wearing and trying to like, they're going into it to be famous rather than to like become the best designer that they could become, right? They're the way they frame their goals of being a fashion designer is skewed more towards, I guess, the modern day influencer type culture versus just going to become the best artist you can become given this opportunity. So she doesn't fit in with them. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF, that stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. Like I said, there's this black kid that's helping her out. So she got this new place, and she's having these, she goes to sleep in her new room at this new place, this old lady's room, the top of the house, which she loves, you know, falls asleep, and she starts having these dreams, these vivid dreams where she's like following this person, this woman that's also in the big city, but now we're in the 60s. Right? We're in the era that she loves. Right? She's following this woman who is in this big city for the first time, also following her dreams. Not fashion design. She wants to be a singer. She wants to be a performer. Right? So arts, same thing. Passion. Go into the big city to pursue your passion. That's the focus of her dreams. And in her dreams, which she kind of, it's not all in the same night. Like you see, the first dream is like this, the romantic version of what everybody thinks it's like to move to the big city to follow your dreams, where she goes into this thing, and the shots and the effects of this movie are great. Like there's a lot of use of mirrors and reflection. And apparently a lot of the effects of this movie were done in camera, which I appreciate as well. The less CG, the better. The more practical effects, the better. And Edgar Wright knows his stuff. So she's following this woman in her dream as she's going. She's trying to get a spot in these clubs that are around town. And she runs into a guy that's he's gonna help her follow her dreams. And then you get to see like the reality and the dreams kind of start to merge at some points. The lead character, who is great, by the way. The woman in her dreams is Anya Taylor-Joy. The main character is Eloise. Well, her character's name is Eloise. Thomasin McKenzie is the actress's name. Great. Both of them great. I'm a big fan of Anya Taylor-Joy. Queen's Gambit, a great miniseries from, I believe, last year. Maybe it's 3 years ago. I don't know. Time is weird. The other guy that's kind of enamored with her, his character's name is John, played by Michael Ajao, Ajao. It'd be good if I could read, but anyway, he is great as well. All the acting is great in this movie, but her dreams start to go south. Her dreams start to reveal more of the reality of what can happen when you move to a big city to follow your dreams, and things don't necessarily pop off immediately. Like, everybody thinks they're going to put in minimum effort and just be discovered. Like, this dream of being discovered is a crock of shit. I mean, does it happen? Sure. Do people get struck by lightning? Probably a far larger amount of people get struck by lightning than they do getting, quote-unquote, discovered. Following a passion, following the arts, especially in the United States, where there's very little social support from any kind of organizations, it's a struggle. It's a grind. The reality of it is a lot of hard work and a lot of disappointment. But people don't want to know that. They want the romantic story. They want the biopic version. They want the stumbled into success version. And her dreams, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, kind of reflect that struggle, but in the most brutal way, because this woman that she's following, this woman that Anya Taylor-Joy's character wants to be a singer, but her manager ends up getting her into prostitution. Got to pay your bills somehow. You make a lot of money doing stuff like that. I mean, you could get a minimum wage job. You can maybe go get a bartending job where you make tips, which actually the main character does that. Eloise ends up getting a job at a bar to make some money, because she needs money. She's not living in the dorms anymore. She's got to pay rent, and she's also buying new clothes that she's in the city, so she has to get a job too. But in her dreams, Sandy, who's Anya Taylor-Joy, starts prostituting, sex work, because of this manager guy that's supposed to be getting her all these gigs. He only ends up getting her some like side gig. She's like a backup dancer in some like burlesque type of club. So it's completely skewed. Her dream of being a performer is completely different, and she gets roped into this sex work stuff, which ends up destroying her, because she ends up mentally removing the faces from all of these different people. Not really, they don't become real people to her after a while, because she's not into it. Not all sex workers are into sex work. And for whatever reason, she's stuck with it. Probably maybe she, felt like there were no other options. Who knows? A million different ways to get roped into living a life that you never thought you'd be living. But these dreams start to infect the main character, Eloise. These dreams start manifesting in her real life. She starts being haunted by these guys who are like these crazy blurry face effect. Like, as far as the CG that was used in this movie, great effect, great use of it. These faces that are blurry and you can kind of make things out, but you kind of can't. They start popping up into Eloise's real life. She starts flipping out. People think she's going crazy. She starts getting violent. Things start happening. And at the end of this movie, you realize, like, there's this twist. Like, she basically, it's like a noir. She's trying to she wants to figure out In one of her dreams, she sees that Sandy dies. Right? I'm not gonna go into details just in case you haven't seen it. If you have, you know how it is. She dies, and she's like trying to figure out who the killer was. And there's people that she assumes, and she's wrong. And she thinks that like these blurry faces are out to get. It's like it really goes deep into like this kind of horror type of thing where you have to like, it feels like a regular movie, and then she's just having dreams, and then it becomes something more. It steps into more of a horror genre. I've heard this movie compared to the giallo films, which is I believe French, no, maybe Italian horror films that had a yellow tint to them, which yellow in, I believe, Italian is giallo, which is how those series of those films were kind of told. But those films also have like, they're very gory, they're very violent, they're very like psychologically straining in a way, confusing, and it would like kind of like high like the premises are very, very out there on some. And so I kind of feel the same. I'm not an expert in those types of films. I haven't watched that many. I've watched parts of a few and kind of heard discussions about them, so I kind of got a feel for it and kind of agree with the fact that this has a lot of those vibes. I don't know if it would actually be categorized as such, but it definitely feels like it takes has a lot of influence from those films. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. But yeah, so she's trying to solve this murder and comes to find out that it's all wrong. That Sandy actually didn't, the dream she had. So I've heard criticisms also about this dream she has where she sees Sandy get murdered, which coincidentally is also a night where she brought John over to her house, to her room at this house, which she's not allowed to have boys over, men over. So she snuck him in a black dude in the 60s going into a white girl's room in an apartment she's renting from an old white lady. And she starts having, while they're having sex, she starts having this dream. And this dream's super violent, where Sandy's being attacked by her pimp and ends up getting stabbed by her pimp, which is the dream that she's having. But the dream is wrong. What the movie's showing you is wrong, because that's not what happened. That's just what happened in her dream. Because the reality, the twist of this movie, which is kind of a cheat because of the dream showing you one thing, but it was a dream. Dreams can be wrong. It wasn't, she wasn't seeing visions. She was having a dream. She wasn't remembering. She wasn't there. She wasn't remembering those events. She was having a dream. She was getting the essence of those events. She knew something bad happened in that room that she is staying in, but she was just off slightly. Because what you find out is and I'm saying spoilers, people, you find out is that Sandy, the woman in her dreams, Anya Taylor-Joy, the performer turned prostitute, is the old lady that she is renting the room from. And that these blurry-faced men that are haunting Eloise are all of the Johns that were killed by Sandy and hid inside the walls of the house, which there's a line earlier in the movie when she's showing her the house. She's like, during the summer, we need to make sure, windows open or whatever because, there's the smell is bad because of blah, blah, blah. Because one of the restaurants down below, there's a lot of, I forget exactly what her excuse was, but it was an excuse to kind of explain whatever smell is going to be emanating from the walls of this place during the summertime because they are full of dead bodies. And those dead bodies, these ghosts, are trying to get redemption, which is kind of morally a very strange, like a very unique moral teeter-totter in this story where you almost have, the movie almost wants you to have sympathy for these Johns that were murdered by Sandy, which, in my opinion, which take that with a grain of salt, my opinion, I think sex work should be legal. I think it should be regulated. I think they should be tested. I think it's the fact that you can give somebody a massage and that's fine, but then sex is not fine. Like, as long as you're consenting, you're not being drug into it, It's something that you want to do for however long you want to do it. I think it should be legal. So, coming from that standpoint where it should be legal and you shouldn't go to a prostitute that doesn't want to be doing prostituting, and also you shouldn't be killed by somebody that doesn't want to be doing their thing. So you kind of, on some level, sympathize with these faceless, naked men that are just surrounding Eloise at this one point of the movie. And it's kind of weird because throughout most of it, you sympathize with Sandy, despite the fact that, because she clearly doesn't want to be doing that. She doesn't want to be doing sex work. She wants to be singing. But her life went zigged when it should have zagged. And she can't get herself out of it. So instead of getting herself out, she decides to seek revenge on all of these men that take advantage of her. I mean, that's like, she feels like she's been taken advantage of by all of these men, but which on some level she was, because she didn't want to be there. But if it was a different situation and it's somebody who's doing sex work that enjoys sex work, that would not be the case. It's weird, that little thing, but it's a great twist. I thought it was a great twist when you find out that Sandy is the old lady, and then you kind of see her turn where she's now attacking Eloise. And then the fire at the end is great as well. I really did enjoy this movie in a lot of ways, and I did really appreciate the kind of the commentary on the romantic idea of following your dreams versus the reality of the struggle that is following your dreams. Now, that doesn't mean everybody that follows their dreams has to be a prostitute, but you do end up prostituting yourself on some level. You're going to take jobs that you don't care about. You're going to do freelance work that you don't care about. You're going to be treated like crap from people left and right because they know you're trying to do a thing and they'll take advantage. It's just a constant struggle for the majority of people who try to follow their dreams. It is not an easy path. It is not a romantic Hollywood biopic version of success. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that kind of that messaging, which I don't know if that was part of it at all, but that's what I got out of it for sure. Is there anything else that I missed? It's also about, in the end, she kind of comes through the whole thing, overcomes her demons, as it were, but still, she still sees Sandy. So whatever issues, whatever abilities Eloise has to see dead people clearly, clairvoyant, whatever that's called, is still there. But in some ways, it's a different situation at the end because there's been justice. Sandy, doesn't survive. So in a lot of ways, those ghosts that were haunting Eloise are now laid to rest. If you were to kind of go by the rules of ghosts, how all of the lore of how ghosts work, that they are only there because they have something, they're holding on to something that wasn't completed yet. So those things got completed. But I enjoyed it as far as like feeling like an Edgar Wright movie. I don't know if it feels like an Edgar Wright movie, but it's a beautiful movie. The way it's shot, the music is great. All of the scenes are amazing. The performances are great. I mean, he's an amazing filmmaker. And I think that Baby Driver was his first step away from just pure comedy. I think it's also the first these two movies are the first two that he didn't have Simon Pegg writing with him, I believe. So there is definitely that feel that it doesn't have that comic sensibility, which is perfectly fine. I mean, like all of his, even Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, one of the greatest movies, but that still has more of a, like so many of his movies have like more of this adolescent humor to them. This kind of, just silly, goofy. And then Baby Driver, a little bit more serious. I mean, it's more of an action-y heist type of a movie. And then this one is great. Like, just a completely different genre. I mean, despite the fact that Shaun of the Dead, I guess, is a horror. It's a horror comedy. But there's no real comedy in this. This is just a straight-up, like, dramatic kind of horror. There may be some comedic elements to it, but it is played straight. It is played psychological. Like, he's tackling ideas and things that I don't think he's even touched upon in any of his other films. And I appreciate that. I appreciate, directors that are willing to try something new, to grow as an artist themselves, and I appreciate that. So if you get a chance, I'm sure it's going to be streaming soon. I highly recommend checking out Last Night in Soho, directed and written by Edgar Wright, starring Thomasin McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, and highly recommend it. Check it out. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.